Welcome to episode number 59 and another episode of Direct Connections. This time around, we have a very special guest and someone who has been very difficult to get on the show, to say the least. But I had to get this guy on the show because he truly deserves all the credit in the world for making me a Mopar enthusiast, and I want him to share some of his experiences with Mopars. And the only way to do that was to get him on the phone. And after that, we'll close the show with some listener stories, and we'll save Project Car of the Week and High Performance Parts for next week's episode. So without further ado, if you are a Mopar enthusiast, then you are in the right place. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into the best Mopar enthusiast-driven podcast on planet Earth, and I am your host, Chris Albrecht, better known as the Mopar Hunter, and this is Talking Mopars Direct Connections.
You're listening to Talking Mopars with the Mopar Hunter, your direct connection to all things Mopar.
I don't know if this guy has stage fright or what, but I managed to trick him into being on the show, and the truth is, without him, not only would the Mopar Hunter not exist, but neither would Talking Mopars. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my dad. He doesn't know that he's going to be on the show, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to call him right now, and we're just going to go off the cuff, and hopefully he doesn't catch on that I'm recording it for a podcast. But if he does, we're just going to roll with it. And of course, at the very end, I'm going to let him know what's going on. But hopefully he won't disown me. So we're going to find out right now. I'm giving my dad a call right now. Dad. Dad. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I had my volume down. I almost missed your call.
All right, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I wanted to tell your stories on my podcast, so I just wanted to get some things good for the record, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. Hey, be honest. Have you ever even listened to my podcast yet?
Huh?
Have you even listened to my podcast yet?
Not for a little bit, then kind of.
Hey, you can say no. It's fine.
Well, not for a little bit. I catch it here and there. I've just been kind of trying to do stuff around the house here. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. You do know that I have the best Mopar podcast on planet Earth, right? You know,
Yeah.
You know it's huge.
Yeah, I try to share it once in a while when I see it.
Sweet. Yeah, I appreciate that. I just want to I want to get the facts right about, how you got into Mopars, because I know Grandpa had some. I don't know how many he had, but I'd like to get started there. How many Mopars did Grandpa have?
I don't know. He had a 68 Polara, a 66 Cornet, and then before that, you had the DeSoto 58 DeSoto Fireflight. One of the cars we got when we came here, and then he had a couple of 40s Dodges. One that I almost crashed.
That's right. I remember that story. You let go of the emergency brake or something?
Yeah. We were, we looked at the top of a hill, kind of like, and we had a chauffeur there, and I was just playing in the car. And I've never seen a guy run so fast. We almost hit the fence. We had a driveway going up to the house, and
Wow.
we had a fence. If I remember right, a brick and wood down by the street.
So was that was that the first
freaked
Mopar you
out.
ever drove, or what?
Huh?
Was that the first Mopar you ever drove?
Backwards, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep. Didn't know what the hell I did wrong, but I noticed the thing was going off, going down the hill. And,
Gosh, that's crazy.
yeah, that guy saved my ass. Yeah, he ran like God. He ran. I don't know how he got in there and stopped the car, but he did.
That's funny. So, what did you learn how to drive like when you got your license in a Mopar?
Yep, the DeSoto. Drove it all
Oh,
around the yard.
really? That's
Drove it
crazy.
onto the street, back it up, to back it up into the driveway.
Right on. Now
That was
you're
a big car too.
now what was your first official car?
67 Dart, regular Dart with a 225/6 two-door post. The cheapest Dart you can get.
Did you like it?
Like, yeah, it was all right. Got that for $700. I had low miles. Got it from a university student that, believe it or not, was a Middle East guy. He was going back home. He was a University of Washington guy. This back in the '60s.
Oh, really?
Yep, back in the '60s, my first car was the '67 Dart two-door.
How
Wish I
long?
could have kept it. That was a clean car, all white, red interior.
That's cool. Um,
Yeah,
how long did you have that?
six 6 months or so, less than a year.
And then
I
what was
got
the
the green.
and then you
Got
got
the
the
green
green
one.
one. So tell me about the next one. So the green dart, tell us about that.
I just, I don't know. It's good on insurance, so really wanted something. Really wanted something better, a lot faster. But you're not going to bitch, so
What did it have? A
we got that one.
273?
Because insurance was crazy back then. Anybody, that's what killed the muscle cars was the insurance.
So when you had the other dart, the white dart, were you wanting a Mopar to hot rod, or was it just kind of a mode of transportation and you didn't get into hot rodding until you got the 69 dart?
I never really looked at hot rodding. I just kind of like to have a. I just like cars, so I was happy to get that one.
Right on. So what got you started into hot rodding the dart then?
Because that was kind of like what everybody's eventually was doing,
Yeah.
and I didn't want something that looked like everybody else's. And most of my friends uh, had the Camaros and Firebirds, and I don't think I ever met anybody that had a Mustang. It was usually a Camaros, Firebirds, and Barracudas and Darts. And I had a friend that had a '68 GTS with a 340 that was racing them. Actually, I met a couple of guys that was racing their Darts. I met more people racing Darts than I did any other car.
Yeah, because you grew up during the peak point of muscle cars.
Yeah. I graduated in '69, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I remember having to pay for the car and being able to go to school. I remember having a paper route and up in Capitol Hill that paid $1 for every paper I delivered, so that was $200 a month, and made my car payments and my insurance, and still got me to go to high school. So that was all right.
that was
And
cool.
just spend an hour after.
It must have been nice having a cool car in high school, right?
Yeah, it was okay. Uh, I see. Of all my friends, I was the only one that really had a car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nobody had a car.
Huh.
But your grandfather kind of stipulated a lot, though. His deal was that help me with the car and all that if I stayed away from everything else everybody was doing then. So that was the trade off. Lose my friends, have a car, and they were doing stuff that I didn't agree with anyway, and that was getting high and everything else. I
Yeah.
didn't see any future in that.
Yeah,
So that was the trade off. Don't get high, don't get drunk, don't get in trouble, and I'll help you with a car.
you know,
So I thought that was a pretty good trade off. And as it turned out, it was probably better because most people don't have their friends after they get out of school anyway.
that's
Everybody,
very true. I've
everybody goes their own way.
yeah, I still keep in touch with my friends, but we're not as close as we used to be, you know. But
Yeah.
some of us are, some of my close friends, but um, you know, I actually the only reason I'm even into Mopars is because of you and the stories you used to tell me about Golden Gardens and the street racing and your dart and stuff like that. It had to have been crazy growing up in a time where people were, driving these crazy cars that would later on, like in today's day, be worth so much money. I remember you telling me about a Hemi Cuda and these Hemi cars and all these guys street racing and how crazy it was back then.
Oh yeah, Golden Gardens was only, what, 10 minutes away from the house. That was a great place to hang out 7 days a week.
Oh, it went on 7 days a week?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that wasn't just a weekend thing. The only thing that was a weekend thing that I found out later was like Kobe. That was Friday and Saturday nights. But
Oh,
that was really no racing there. It was just people just cruising, you know.
yeah, that's crazy
And,
too, because back then, cruising wasn't illegal. Now, if you go to like Everett or even Marysville or Kent, they have signs that say no cruising.
yeah.
It's criminal. I don't like it.
Well, you know what? Kobe probably could have lasted a lot longer if people didn't pick up their garbage. I
Yeah.
mean, that was one of the things that the business people finally got fed up with having to pick up the garbage after Friday night and Saturday night, because the people that was cruising, not everybody, but you could park there and they just left their garbage, and that's I think that's what killed Colby, and what killed Golden Gardens after, geez, for like 10 years plus was somebody got on the news media, and next thing you know, it made big news, and next thing you know, the cops are there, and because the cops they knew what was going on. They used to drive by on the road there, and everybody stopped, and like look around, and like having a good time, and the cops never really drove in. They just drove onto the main street and went up the hill underneath the tracks, and then they were gone. Everybody was back to doing what they were doing, just having a great time. And I know the cops knew. They figured, well, everybody's here.
Yeah.
We don't have to. Their night was pretty slow. They didn't have to worry about kids or people breaking in and killing people. Because they knew where everybody was at. They were down in Golden Gardens, doing stupid things like racing.
Who was out of all the cars that you saw there? Who do you remember being the fast guy? Who had the fast car?
There was a lot of fast cars there, and there was a lot of them that hit the curb and rolled over.
Oh, really?
And even there were some few. Yeah, people lose control. They're not professional racers, and some of these idiots. I shouldn't say idiots, but some of these guys were, should know better if they didn't know their car. So, because yeah, I was with this one guy that had he was trying to show off his CUDA to me, and so I drove. He had a 340 69 4-speed CUDA, and we were all of a sudden we had this Hemi Roadrunner next to us, because you can't miss it. It says Hemi right there in the hood.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm going to take this guy," and I said, "Oh man, he's going to take you." And he and I knew that he could probably go in the first. He'd be out the gate first, but hey, if you're doing a 8-mile, quarter mile, the Hemi's he's gonna run you down.
Oh yeah.
He got a great start, but the Hemi just kind of passed him. It's
Yeah.
like you're a little fool. No better than you got the feeling like you know better than race me because you knew I could take you.
Yeah, I'd probably be doing the same thing if I had a Hemi Roadrunner.
When I ride my VMAX and I get some of these guys next to me, and the only guy that ever, when I was on my VMAX, the only guys that ever challenged me was guys on their V-Rods and their Sportsters. And I gotta admit, they're quick, but it's just like the Hemi and the 340. The VMAX at the end will take you.
That's a 10-second bike. It's pretty fast.
You got a lot of torque, but
Yeah.
it's only going to take you so far.
Yeah.
So.
But,
yeah.
So Golden Gardens was crazy and all that, and you never raced the Dart, and you told me that it was just basically it was your only car, and you didn't want to risk destroying it like a lot of those kids were doing. Let me ask you this: as far as your Dart goes, because you did what you could with what you had. You weren't rich, but it still was a cool Dart. Like that one picture, the only picture that I know of the Dart that I kept in my room is I don't know where you guys were, maybe Deception Pass, but you had the hood open, you were like checking the oil or something, but the car just looked awesome. You had the GTS hood on it, and it had the air shocks in the back, and you had the appliance mags on it. So it just had a really cool look. It was a really cool car. I wouldn't have been ashamed to drive that thing. That thing was cool.
No, that Krager's on there.
Oh, it was Krager's on the. What had appliances on it?
The appliance I had on the van for a little bit. Then I got tired of them.
Oh, okay. So the Dart had Krager's.
Yeah, the Darts were Krager's.
I thought those were appliance.
They were a bitch too, because back then they didn't have those special tire machines, so
Oh,
you always snap off the little lips that holds the cap on it.
oh yeah.
So you always have to be careful when you change tires on those cars, on
Hmm.
those wheels.
Let me ask
They
you.
were a pain. They were a pain in the ass, really.
Well, I have them for my green dart, so don't say that too much. um,
Well, you got to be careful with them because they do rust. They do flake. I don't know about the Quakers today, but God, the chromas they flake on those back then.
yeah, I think the Kragers today are made in China, but
Oh, they
they're
flake even more now.
yeah, but I mean, my dart actually has to get on the road and drive for the wheels to get ruined, so
They were,
that's not happening anytime soon. Um, Let me ask you this: if you could go back in time and change something on the dart, what would you do?
if I could go back in time, uh,
Bigger motor?
yeah, probably. I was never a fan of the big block, so yeah, probably a bigger motor, 340.
You weren't a fan of the big
340s,
blocks?
340s are 340s are a strong motor.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for everyday running. I mean, like I said, it's a car I needed every day, and a big block car would have been crazy to have to drive one every day as a everyday driver. But
Sure.
340 would have been a reasonable engine to have. Considering that I had to had to go to school, had to go to work, whatever I had to do. I was every day I was in that car.
Yeah. Um,
But if I still kept it today, it probably would have a big block because I wouldn't have to drive it every day.
yeah. You know what a lot of people are doing these days is swapping the modern Hemis in the old cars. I think that's really cool. I talk about it all the time on my podcast.
Yeah. The only thing I hate about the modern engines is all the electronics. And sometimes I just like to go back to just the simple days.
Well,
Just
you do know
simple
that.
distributor, simple carburetor. Don't have to worry about anything. It was easy to fix if you got stuck somewhere.
Well, these days, I have some friends down in Louisiana. My friend Blake, he owns a company called DIY Hemi, and you can actually go to their website at diyhemi.com. But he has simplified a lot of the wiring to make it really easy to put a modern Hemi in an old Mopar. And the cool thing is they make intake manifolds, aluminum intake manifolds now, where you can get rid of um, the modern fuel system and put on a carburetor, or you can get EFI, like the new school carburetors
Right.
that look like carburetors but are actually electronic fuel injection. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. The advances they're making in the technology is pretty cool, and they're making it easier and easier to get new Hemis in the old Mopars. So I think that's pretty cool. I've contemplated, once I'm done with the big block and it gets old, putting a modern Hemi in a Dart. And my buddies over at Hemi Pages, I don't know if I've told you too much about this, but they're doing a project. It's called the Build Mopar Project, and they're building a 68 Superstock Dart tribute car with a modern Hemi in it. And it's actually going to have a Whipple supercharger, and this thing's it's gonna be putting down over 1,000 horsepower. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be like 8-second quarter mile.
Yeah, you need a roll bar.
Oh, yeah, it needs more than that. We're
I mean, from watching what the new Challenger Hellcats are running, yeah,
Yeah, it's funny. Guys are getting kicked out of the track because you can't. There's a certain time that you can run before you need a roll cage. I think it's like 11.99 or 10.99, something like that. And you're required. You probably get one run in, and then you'll get kicked off the track because you don't have a roll cage. So, but the modern Hemis are getting pretty common to be swapped in the old Mopars, and people like it because they have all the classic looks of the old Mopars, but they have all the modern power and all the different tunability, because you can get into the
right.
computers and you know tune them to be really crazy. But you had it. Let's get back to the Dart. You actually had it. So it was a 69, and I know that in 1974 or 75 you traded it in on the van, correct?
Yeah, late '75. Because I wanted a 3/4 because a half tons you had to run unleaded gas. I wasn't a fan of unleaded gas. So if you ran a 3/4 or 1 ton, then you could still run regular gas because Still had regular gas there until what, 1981. Then I went all unleaded.
So what was the decision process on getting rid of the Dart and getting into the vans? What was it about the vans that made you get rid of the Dart?
Well, the band started. It was a different time.
Yeah.
The performance was so detuned. Nobody was into performance cars anymore. If you saw what was going on with performance cars, they were a joke. Even the Corvette was a joke.
Yeah.
So everybody uh, started going, into trucks, vans, or whatever, and some of the diehards stay with the hot rods, but you the only thing available was unleaded gas and regular, so you couldn't. I don't think the premium gas was. Or were they available? I can't even remember. But yeah, I went with a 3/4 B200 because it was regular. So
And you bought that thing. It was a cargo van. It was completely gutted, right?
yeah, it was brand new, nothing inside of it.
Wow. Do you remember how much you paid for it?
Yeah, I think they were asking 75 for it, and I wanted to pay 5 for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the end of the year. The 76 were out. This was just after Christmas, before the New Year. And I walked into the Dodge up in Linwood, and they had one. He showed me this one with the big door and all that. And I saw some vans back then. Vans were the rage. So they had specialty shops that was just selling custom vans.
Yeah.
And they were going anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 to $10,000 that are depending how it was equipped. And I was looking at those, but those were all half-ton vans, and I thought, they look nice and all that, and blah 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 blah. But I thought, well, maybe I want to do something myself. So I looked at the Dodge dealership, went over there, and they had one for like 75, and I said, no, it's the end of the year, 76 are out. I'll give you 5 for it. And, I was there for 2-3 hours, and I finally said, you know what, I'm gonna go. So I start walking out, and they met me at the door and says, "Hey, wait." I said, "How about 55?" And I thought, and then I knew that they were never gonna, always never agree to your price. They always want to go a little higher. So I said, "Okay," because I was thinking, between 5,000 and 6,000, but I want to start at 5.
Yeah.
And so he said 55, and I said, "Okay, you got a deal." And they gave me $700 for a Dart. God, if I would have looked back, I would have kept it for 700 freaking bucks.
Yeah. I hear that all the time. People talk about
Yeah.
that all the time about how much cars were going for back then.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't understand how houses and cars are ridiculously high today. It's just insane.
It's inflation. It's ridiculous.
I don't know if it's inflation or what. I mean, even in the mid '80s, an average house was $750 to $80,000.
Yeah, you can't even get an apartment for that for that kind of money. um,
I mean, that was what 35 years ago.
yeah.
Then that's when it started creeping up. Look at that Daytona I bought. But I think I got ripped off. I mean, I was looking at $20,000 loaded. I wanted the T-tops. I wanted the Shelby package and everything else, and I had to drop most of it to bring it down to $17,000 because I was also looking at another car.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, no, I want to stay with the Daytona, but I don't want to pay $20,000. When the average went out, all the ones I was looking at when I was shopping around for the Daytonas were 16 at the most, and they were somewhat fairly loaded, but didn't have all the options that I wanted. So that's when I had to special order it. And boy, I tell you, they take you.
Yeah.
They rip you off when you special order a car.
It's kind of crazy because I wanted to see because I found out that I could lease a wide body scat pack for the same for less than $500 a month. I could get a basic package wide body scat pack Challenger, but it would be a 3-year lease, and I don't want to lease another car. So I decided just to wait and see what I could come up with in a few years when my truck's paid off and whatnot. But let's go back to the van for a little bit because I've always been curious about this, and I don't think we've ever talked about it. When you had the van, it was completely gutted, and you wanted to customize it. You had never customized a van before, so how did you learn how to do all that? Because you did everything yourself, right? You did all the shag carpet and the cabinets and all that stuff, and the sunroofs and the portholes.
Well, your Uncle Bob, he had a Chevy van,
Hmm.
and he spent a lot of money having his done. And I was looking at his, and I know, God, I can do that. You know, so first thing I had done in my van was put one of them Venturi scoops under the roof, and there was a lot of van shops at the time. So there was one in Everett, and I went and had them do it. It cost me, I think it was $80 for the whole thing, because the labor was $50 just to cut a 14 by 14 hole on the roof, and
Yeah.
to install it. And I was watching them do it, and I was looking at the other vans they're working on, and I thought, well, shit, most of this stuff I can do myself. So that's kind of what motivated me, just to see how they did it. And I thought, well, God, I can do that. So I did. I installed the double sunroof, took that bin out, put a sunroof back there, and another sunroof up front, put the portholes in. It was just one of those things. Well, here I go. I either screw it up or it's going to look good. Then
Yeah.
I ended up putting some sunroofs in people's cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because people, they saw what I did to the van. And I did some sunroofs on my cars.
Yeah, I know that.
So,
Yeah.
so then everybody was saying, well, can you put a sunroof in my car? And I go, well, I like look, but I did. I did some, it all turned out good, because I was really scared that I was going to really screw somebody's car over.
Yeah,
But it didn't happen, so that was good.
that's good. Yeah, you did all the carpet in there, and you had Mom's help with that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that was easy to do. You just kind of look at what other people have done, and then you just kind of look, and then you figure it out.
Yeah,
And actually, they had kits back in those days that you get that you can plans, that you can send in.
yeah,
So I sent in for that, because I just wanted the ceiling was easy to do. It was just a sidewall. This was a pain, but as it turned out, I didn't really need the plans, because the plans were kind of a joke. So I just kind of figured it out myself. It was easy to do. Just have to keep trimming until you get to where you want it. You just have to do it. I mean, it looks kind of scary, and like, God, I don't think I can do this, but it was easy.
that's
Because
good.
when it's too long, you just trim it, keep trim it until you get it to where you want it.
Yeah, it's good that you know how to do that stuff, because I know I told you I'm gonna go buy that van, probably in
Yeah,
springtime for my buddy, and I'm gonna need it's completely gutted too, so I'm gonna need your help putting the carpet
yeah,
and stuff inside.
it's easy to do. Just get. You know what? I was really conscious of the weight, so I didn't use. A lot of people are using plywood. I was just using paneling, eighth of an inch paneling, and I just put the foam and everything else on it, because I didn't want to weigh the van down. I just wanted to keep it, the weight. I was conscious of the weight, because you can get those things down really heavy, real fast, if you're not careful.
Yeah,
So if you're going to do that van, kind of consider the weight, and try to find materials that isn't going to weigh it down.
well, I told you what I want to do with it is I want to turn it into a mobile podcast studio, so that when I go to car shows
Yeah,
and stuff, I can actually record my podcast on site and talk to people about their cars and stuff.
yeah. Well,
So
and that's great. But like I said, you just use the materials and it will still look good. I mean, nobody knows that I was using eighth of an inch paneling as my board, because I've got the insulation behind it, and like I said, you can tell. Got 2-inch foam on it. Looks like a padded room.
yeah,
I wish I wish I would have just bought it from Ray. Damn it, I didn't really regret that.
yeah, because you sold it to Uncle Ray.
Yeah, because it's just one of those deals.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to. I kind of really wish I didn't. What? Really, looking back, I really wish I wouldn't got the getaway. I should have just got a caravan.
Yeah.
And just kept everything else I had and just deal with a caravan, because I didn't have that much more on the Daytona, and I could have done it. I don't know why I didn't. I was looking at the van having a lot of miles on it, having to redo the engine on that, and I was having a little trouble on the Daytona. I was a little disappointed, that.
Yeah.
But I should have realized that was second year for that turbo engine, and sometimes it takes them a while to work out the bugs.
You like that turbo though. You like the Turbo Z. I know I did.
Yeah, yeah. I was looking at the Lotus Esprit
Oh,
for
really?
the same '89.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, I like to have a Lotus engine and stick it in the Daytona. That thing, it's got like 264 horsepower, does a quarter, just 60 in 4.9 seconds. Does 163 top speed, and that's a rear mid-engine car. And God, if I can get a Lotus head for the 2.2, because they have a 2. They're running 2.2 also with a Lotus head. A Lotus engine. So I was wondering what the Lotus turbo trees would be like on the Daytona. Other than
Oh,
that one, I took a
you're
test
talking
for
about the
you were there when I took that test ride in that red Daytona,
yeah,
didn't
you're
it?
talking about the IROC Daytonas, the RTs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that was
should have
fun.
bought that one.
That was a fun
That was
car.
only $8,000. That would have been a good deal. It didn't have very many miles on it.
Hey, did you see the car that I tagged you in on Facebook? That red Daytona, that '86 T-top red Daytona with 84,000 miles in Washington for $1,500.
I was looking all over for that, and apparently somebody bought it.
Yeah, somebody in Minnesota bought it. It was clean. Like I didn't think it would be that clean, but it was super clean. The leather like barely had any cracks in it. It had the T-tops and it still had the headlight covers and I guess the car was garaged its whole life, completely stock. I was like $1,500. I mean, I would have bought it. I would have bought
Yeah,
it.
I would too. That's looking like I said. I was looking for it. I would have bought it.
Yeah, I didn't know it was for sale. I didn't see it because I check all the ads all the time, but apparently it was posted on one of the Turbo Mopar pages, and I'm in so many groups that it's hard to see that stuff. And man, it was in Washington, pops, and it was garaged, 84,000 miles, T-top car. Oh,
Yeah.
5 speed. That would have been a good one to have. We would have had a black CS and a red CS. That would have been cool.
Well, you know what? By the time I saw that ad, it was sold.
Yeah,
And
me too.
and I'm usually on Facebook every day. I never saw that, and I've got all the pages.
Yeah,
All
I
the
never saw
clubs.
it either.
I never saw it, other than when it was finally some guy put it up, and it was kind of sold about the same time.
Yeah, I saw the picture of it and I was like, "Oh, that thing looks really clean." And I looked at the license plate and it said Washington. I was like, "No way." And then I looked at the comments and it had already been sold. I was so bummed. I was like, "Oh, because I have the money. I would have went and bought it, but that money's actually for that van. So I would have had to come up with some more money really quick." But let's talk about your Daytona a little bit more. Is that the favorite Mopar that you've had? What was your favorite Mopar? If you could have any of the Mopars you've had that you don't have now, if you could have any of the ones from your past, which one would you have back?
It'd be. Had a lot of fun with the Dart and Golden Gardens. Met a lot of friends, and then the band was the same way. Met a lot of people with the bands, and yeah, the Daytona, that was okay. I don't, now that I got a few of them, I would love to. Yeah, I seen where like one guy had a, that one with the with the Hemi in it, the black one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a supercharger on it now.
You
I
know,
don't know
I
if you saw that one.
yeah, I talked to if it's the same guy that we're thinking of, I talked to him and there's some really cool stuff in the works with converting Daytonas to rear-wheel drive. I'll have to figure out if those rumors are true, but I heard in the grapevine that there's a company out there that's going to start remaking the conversion kits to turn Daytonas into rear-wheel drives. I'm really curious about that because we have a couple Daytonas. you know.
Yeah, too bad. We couldn't. I was thinking about somebody. Maybe putting out a kit.
That's what it sounds like is going to happen, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll just say that.
It'd be nice to have a Hemi Daytona, I suppose.
But going back to my question, you probably take the Dart back, huh?
Yeah, I like the Dart because I wasn't really done with it.
Yeah.
But the gas, the thing wasn't that economical. That's why I had to get a couple of small cars to run around in when the gas got really tight. especially when you're standing in gas lines. It wasn't exactly something I wanted to do every day. So I had to find an alternative method of finding myself around. And that's when I got the other cars, and the dart just kind of sat around a lot. And
Yeah,
I kind
well,
of wish I would have had a better view of the future, and have found a better place to park all my cars, and I probably would still have all of them today.
yeah, well,
But I didn't have the force. I was kind of dumb in that respect. Should have had the foresight of wanting, because I knew I was going to have a bunch of cars. But you know, when you look at and you kind of wonder where you're going to end up, and you just look at, well, what am I going to lose if I don't make it? You know what I mean?
yeah, I get it.
And I didn't want to lose, because it was like a betting game. Back in the day,
Yeah,
because nothing was for sure. I didn't know if I was going to have a job or how long my job was going to be. So yeah, it wasn't like, if you can switch some parts of your life around where you would know for sure.
I hear that
Because
all the time. I hear
no
from
matter
guys
how
all the
hard you
time.
try, you can always lose your job.
Yeah, I hear so many stories about guys going, "Yeah, if I only knew then what I know now about these cars, I would have bought all the Hemi cars, when they were going for $500." You know?
Well, yeah, I wish I would have bought that Challenger that your Uncle Bob told me about. For $5,000.
What was it?
Jimmy Christmas.
What was it again?
It was that '70 Challenger RTSE, black, formal roof, leather, 440 six-pack, for
Oh
five
God,
grand because he had to get rid of it because he was getting divorced. He was getting rid of all of his cars.
that's an expensive car these days.
Oh my God! You know what? I told him, I said, I just bought this Daytona, man. I should have just said, you know what? For $5,000, that wouldn't have been a bad deal.
Yeah.
Find a place somewhere, and if I couldn't keep it, I'll sell it.
Gosh, did it have the shaker hood on it?
I never saw it.
Oh, okay.
Never saw it. He just told me it was a beautiful, and I know his friend, okay, because I've met him. Today he's got a massive car collection as it is.
Yeah.
But back then, he wanted to sell all of his cars, and he didn't. He hated his wife, I guess, that he was getting divorced from. But your Uncle Bob knew him well, knew his cars.
Wow.
He says, Chris, it's a beautiful car. I wish I could buy it, but
Wow.
he wasn't living in this state. He was living somewhere else, and he didn't. He was kind of hang on to his job where he was at, and wasn't. Was that time when you. Yeah, I should have just went for it. It's one of those things, just like that Superbird that I really wanted to buy for $18,000. I was a day late on that.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where it's like, you should have just bought it and asked for forgiveness from the wife later.
Well, no, it wasn't so much that. It's just,
It was, what year was that?
where am
93?
I going to put it and all that, And
Yeah.
and the Superbird was that's one of those things too. I knew that I knew the prices are climbing up because I was already regretting the Challenger.
Yeah.
So in the early '90s, I saw the prices of the Mopars starting to climb, and I thought, it'd be great to, But then apparently some other people had the same idea I had.
Yeah, of course, it's a Superbird.
I mean,
Gosh.
I kind of came by the next day and it was sold, and he said, well, kind of made me mad because I came in there and he was closing the gate. And I says, man, I kind of look at the Superbird because I just noticed it when I drove by.
Yeah.
He said, I've had it here for a couple of weeks. And I says, I've never noticed it. And he goes,
Wow.
well, because I usually go down the old 99, just look at the car lots as I'm going home from, Everett. And I saw it parked there, and I thought, oh my God, stopped and looked at it. And he goes, oh, we're closing. I says, well, kind of look at it. And he says, come by tomorrow if you want to buy it. And I said, oh, okay. Came by after work, it was gone. He said, yeah, I sold it first thing this morning.
God.
Said, yeah, whatever.
Oh man, that sucks.
Sometimes I wonder if they weren't just putting that car there just to get people to come in, and
Maybe.
then take the car out. You
That's
know,
funny.
just get people to show up in those mom and pop car lots.
It's funny because I've actually talked to a couple local Mopar guys, and they remember some of the cars that we've actually looked at. Like, I know somebody remembered the Superbird. Um, at
The yellow
Detroit,
one.
yeah, at Detroit Auto Works, somebody remembered the Duster that I really wanted, that brown one. They actually said it wasn't a real 340 car; that it was only a 318 car. So that was disappointing because remember they had it in like the back area, and it was like three
Yeah,
grand.
that
And
340 in the hood
yeah,
stamped on it and all.
I had the 340 call
Yeah,
out on the hood, and it was God. I wanted that car for 3 grand. It seemed like prices were cheaper back then. And then remember the green Cuda, the AAR tribute car for 10 grand.
yeah.
That was a good one. That back then, it seemed like in the mid to late '90s, you could still get a decent Mopar for less than 20,000. Nowadays, it doesn't seem you can do that unless you get lucky.
You know, I really liked the CUDA, that AAR CUDA, but when I opened up the trunk and all that, it just looked like it had some, I don't know, it just seemed like it had a lot of moist in there.
Oh, I'm sure
And
it did.
I was afraid that, you know, it might have some rusting problems for some. I don't know where the car's been,
Yeah,
but it just didn't look dry in the trunk. And that really had me kind of wondering what, you know,
you couldn't touch
what
that
the
car for
rest.
10 grand these days. You could.
Yeah, today you could, but back then there was really nobody like graveyard cars redoing them. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
much less parts. I don't
there's
think you could. Mopars weren't that popular like Chevys and Fords were. I mean, people were just getting into Mopars back in the '90s.
yeah, that still cracks me up, especially with how much they're going for these days. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
nuts, but
I
it's
know. I agree with you. It's insane what they want for. I mean, you can buy a Chevy cheaper. I mean, I see Chevy 2s, Novas, and even some Camaros that have full interiors that are, you know, that are all there that people want a empty bare bones Mopar for.
yeah, yeah. But we're Mopar
I'm,
people, right, Pops? um,
yeah.
Let me ask you something. You've been collecting the turbo Mopars again from the '80s. Out of all Mopars, are the turbo Mopars your favorite Mopars, or are you just getting them because you can find them cheap still?
I like them. They're cheap still. They're kind of easy to work on, um, but I prefer to find a kit and get some welding underneath my belt and just turn them into rear drivers. It's
Yeah,
kind of like the end thinking of my in my game.
nice.
I'll keep, you know, I like to keep some front wheel drives, but for the most part, I like to tear one into and make a rear wheel driver out of it and see where it goes.
Yeah, that would be fun. I'm definitely on board with that. Which, out of all of the ones that we have right now, which one is your favorite? It's got to be the black one, right? The CS.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'm glad I didn't buy the T top when I bought my first one. No, I'm not. Excuse me. I'm glad I bought the sunroof instead of T top
Yeah,
because they wanted almost $2,000. Well, that's one of the reasons why I had to start cutting back and settled on the sunroof instead of the T tops because I don't like the way they did the T tops in the Daytona when I can compare it to the Camaros and everything else. It's like right now I got to change the windshield on the T top Daytona and it's going to be a nightmare. I'm hoping the guy that that I'm gonna. He says he can probably do it, but because he's got to drill out rivets and you know, and it's just plastic parts that are as decoration piece around the windshield. And if he cracks those things, nobody makes them. So then I got to go on the pages and see if anybody has spares or get lucky to find one in a wrecking yard.
yeah. We'll have to. We'll throw the bat signal, the Mopar signal out there. I'm sure somebody has some laying around or something. Hopefully, they can
Yeah,
get that done for you.
but I guess there's some rivets you got to drill out, and you know a lot of seal and got to scrape out, and it's just kind of like, geez.
For the
So,
windshield, that's
and plus, I
crazy.
don't like the fact that compared to the Camaro, it's level with the windshield. It's actually got a value to where water. You know, if you leave your car out,
Yeah.
it's you're going to have water inside your car because I can't see how it couldn't puddle up. So that's kind of like looking at what I have now in the T top and what I had in the sunroof. I'm glad I got the sunroof because it was flush with the roof.
Do you wish that the 86 that you have now is a sunroof instead of T-tops?
In a way, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's nice having the T tops, but you can't find the rubber seals for them. You can't find. You almost have to kind of make something on your own. So yeah, you got to either garage it when it's raining or don't drive it when it's raining.
Yeah.
Because
Preferably just garage it.
that's what the guy told me.
Yeah.
It's a one owner car that I got it from. The guy was what 81 years old when I bought it from him,
Wow.
and I have him as a friend on Facebook. He's a super nice guy,
That's cool.
but he says, man, I haven't. You always got to garage this thing, and I finally understood why. He said that's why I'm selling it. I don't have a place for it anymore, and I don't want to see it get ruined. Plus, he's in his 80s now. What, he's 83, 84 years old now. So he said, he's had his fun with it, but he's the original owner. So
Wow. Yeah, I like that car. I really like the Daytonas. I don't know if it's
yeah,
because I was around one when I was a kid so much, but they're just cool little cars. They're really fun.
yeah, they're a lot of fun. But I like to put a Lotus 3 head on it. I mean, after I saw look up the Lotus Esprit '89.
Well,
It's got the four-cylinder 2.2. It's like I think they rated 270 horsepower on it.
well,
That thing
what's faster than that. You could just put an SRT4 engine in it and be way more powerful, and it's probably more reliable, and you'll have more parts available for it.
yeah, I never thought of that.
Oh no,
I thought about the. I know you're gonna laugh, but Rich's Car Works has got a high output 2.4 PT Cruiser. He's asking $3,000 for, only 117,000 miles on it. I was thinking about taking it out for a spin and see exactly how fast that little SRT motor is.
it's going to be
When
pretty
that little,
quick. It'll probably surprise you, but let's talk about this for a minute. So for a long time, we were without Mopars, and
yeah.
except for the Sundance, but we don't really count that one very much. Or did you get the PT Cruiser and we still had the Sundance, or no?
Let me see.
I think you.
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, yeah, I think you did. It was parked over at Nana's house.
I don't
Yeah,
know that guy took me out with this Sundance. So
yeah, and the semi. That's a crazy story. Is a semi truck hit you? That's nuts. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that thing didn't get more damage, but it was just a rear quarter panel, right?
uh, yeah, he hit me in the quarter panel, ripped off the bumper, and then I spun around the freeway and hit something else, and so I got a dent in the front fender. That was it. I drove it around until till head gasket went out on it again. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like changing it anymore. It had 230,000 miles for you. I mean, I'm surprised that car ran as long as it did because it used to be a thrifty rental car
Yeah.
that only had what 12,000 miles on it when I bought it, and I ran that thing to 230,000 miles. So I only changed the head gasket once, and I didn't want to do it again.
It's funny that
Because
that was
it
a.
had,
It's funny
it
that
had
it
all
was a
that
thrifty
damage
rental
on
car.
it, so I said, screw it.
Yeah, it's funny that it was the thrifty rental car and CSXs were also thrifty rental cars. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah.
The Sundance was not a
Like,
CSX though, unfortunately. But yeah, that's funny. I remember when I came over to the house and I pulled up and there you are and you're shining up the chrome wheels on this PT Cruiser and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way in hell he bought a PT Cruiser. No way. And I remember getting out and I think I said something to the effect of, that's not yours, is it? Something like that. And you laughed. And I was like, you didn't buy that car. But it's been a pretty decent car for you, right?
yeah, not too bad. I don't care much for the motor mounts, but I gotta change the center motor mount on it, and so I got to tear half the motor apart just to do that, which is ridiculous. But
Yeah, well,
it's just one of those things. So when I had the timing belt done, because I needed the car, otherwise I would have tried it myself. I need the car right away, and the guy who did the belt for me, I told him, the center mounts, I've been pretty sure it's bad. Can you change it? Charged me $500 more than what he quoted me, and he changed the motor mount. The other amount that I could do in 30 minutes or less.
oh,
I said,
man.
you didn't do the top one? Oh, no, my mechanic said it was okay. God, 6 months later, that thing went.
Oh God. Yeah, they just
And I
wanted to
knew
get you.
it
They
was
wanted to
already
get you for
going
the other
because I
one.
could feel it.
Oh man, that's rough.
Because and he blamed the vibration. He goes, yeah, you got a little bit of vibration. He goes, I think your half shaft is not, probably going out. And I looked, so I had to check. And he goes, nothing wrong with your half shaft. Something going on with your motor mounts though. And I go, yeah, I know that.
Oh.
Dumbass. Not taking my cars to him anymore. Pissed me off. Like I say, he charged me $500 more because you got a broken bolt on one of your motor mounts. And I go, okay.
Oh man.
Christmas. So you fixed the out, excuse me. He had a Dream Cruiser in there also, and then also he had another car he had was a Typhoon. He had a Typhoon in there that something was wrong with it. He says, the wife got this. She was going through a divorce, and this was one of the cars she got out of the divorce, but something wrong with it. Because I've never worked on these Typhoons before, but I hear they're pretty fast. And then he had a Dream Cruiser. The guy was saying that the valves hit each other, and I said, "What?" He says, "I never knew that PT Cruisers had valves that are what they call that the engines interface motors or whatever." And he goes, "I thought they were. If you broke a belt, it doesn't hurt these engines in the PT Cruiser." He goes, "It depends on where it's breaking." He goes, "Interference." He says, "Some of them." And that's what happened to this Dream Cruiser. He says, the valves slammed into the pistons.
Dream Cruiser?
I wasn't aware of that.
What's a Dream Cruiser? I don't even know what a Dream Cruiser is.
It's a PT Cruiser that Chrysler put out as Dream Cruisers with different colors and different little options on them. And okay. They're numbered. They're numbered cars, believe it or not.
So they're special. Okay.
Yeah, they're special. Right. Just a gimmick to try to sell them. They call them Dream Cruisers, and
that's
like I said,
funny.
they got numbers on them.
I thought that was your little nickname for them.
I think most of them are turbos.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear they're fun, but I don't know. As you know, I'm not the biggest fan of PT Cruisers, but hey, it's a Mopar, so I can't really complain too much.
Well, they have two turbos. They got the regular turbos, and then they got the high output turbos, and the high output is the SRT motor.
Yeah.
And like I said, they got one over in Rich Car Corner down here in Seattle. I'm thinking about just taking it out for a spin, just to see how it runs, because just to see what the high output does. Yeah,
I'm telling you right now, Dad, if you buy another PT Cruiser, I might lose my mind. I might lose my mind. Let's focus on the turbo Daytonas. Okay? It's funny because every time I think about all the front wheel drive Mopars you have right now, like that collection got big pretty quick. Because what do you have? You got the 84 Turbo Z. You've got the 88 CSX, the 80.
No, it's 87.
Or the 87, yeah, that's right. The 87, the black CSX. So you got the 87 CSX. You've got the blue. What is it? An 87 Shelby?
88.
An 88, a blue 88 Shelby. The red 87 Shelby, and then your black 86 CS Daytona. And the Pacifica. And the 87 Pacifica.
87 Turbo 1 Daytona.
How many miles does that thing got on it now?
I think it's got 31,000.
Gosh, that's crazy. If that one was a 5-speed Shelby Z, that would be really cool. It's still a cool car. It makes a great driver. How often do you drive those things? When was the last time you drove any of the Daytonas?
I drive them at least every month or every other month.
All right. Well, I'm going to need to have you bring one of the Daytonas up the next time you drive it so I can drive it. I'm itching to cruise around in a Daytona for a day. We'll go for a cruise.
Yeah, probably not the T-top because it's the weather, but okay. The other one I could.
All right.
And hopefully I can get that red one going here pretty soon because I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah, I'm anxious to work on those things. But
yeah, I am too. I just want to get it done. I wanted to get it out of here. It's just blocking my way. I'm just constantly having to work around it, and I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah. All right, Pops. Well, I don't want to keep you on the phone too long. I just wanted to get some of the Mopar stories out of you. I do want to ask you this though. What do you think about me having a Mopar podcast now. Is it crazy or what? Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even be in this position. I wouldn't even have this. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be a Mopar enthusiast.
Yeah, I'm glad you got it. I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you got an interest in it. I kind of wish I wish we had the phones with the cameras and all this other stuff when back in the '60s and '70s with the Going Gardens and
Yeah.
Kobe and the Renton Loop and even the Lake City Loop.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
When it was fun. I mean, I even drove around in the van in Van Nuys on the way to King City.
Oh, really?
That was fun cruising Van Nuys Boulevard in California.
Oh man, I hear stories about. They have pictures of Van Nuys Boulevard of how crazy the cruising was down there.
Yeah, and that was during the week too.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't just this Friday, Saturday night because I was heading up to King City after visiting some friends of the family down in California. So they showed me where Van Nuys was. So they took me over there in the van. I drove the van, and yeah, that was cool. Driving, I think it was Wednesday night. We're driving cruising Van Nuys Boulevard in the van.
Yeah, those van fairs, man. God, I bought a bunch of old magazines that had vans in them just so I could get some inspiration for the van I'm gonna buy. And I was looking at some of those van shows and the van fairs and the truckins. Man,
yeah.
Those things were wild.
Yeah, I got a plaque from King City that some girl was trying to take away from me.
Oh, really?
And she said, well, he's in the van, as an individual runner compared to somebody being in the van club. Well, I wasn't in my van club anymore. They didn't want to go anywhere anymore, so I kind of was independent. And I was the longest distance, so I got an award for the longest distance individual vanner. So that was kind of cool. I got to find that plaque.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you had that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's from King City.
Wow.
Which King City was, at the time, the biggest van fair on the West Coast.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't even know that you won an award there. That's cool.
Yeah. They played that song all night. Yeah, and then they played one of the things. Well, that's because we were in the van. We camped out with Rain City Vans out of Vancouver, Washington.
Okay.
They took us under their wing because we didn't. We were independent, and they liked us, and so we partied with them, and then we partied with King City, Rain City Vans, and some other vans that we all under one umbrella because everybody had their own little groups from around the country, and
wow.
We were kind of like the Pacific Northwest group, and that was kind of cool. Rain City Vans, those guys were pretty cool. I met them in Canada.
Oh, really?
We were parked by ourselves, and we were parked real close to them, and they said, "Come on over, man." It was family. They were family kind of van club, and so first thing I noticed, though, the cops were walking around, and I'm not used to that because in the United States you don't have cops walking around the fairgrounds, but in Canada they do. They got the Mounties walking around.
Yeah, that's
so
funny.
They can go anywhere, I guess.
I actually remember being really young and going to some of the when they were a little bit tamer, the van fairs that you took me to. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Definitely nothing like the '70s, though.
Yeah. Kind of wish we had the black one then too. I mean, I like the camper van, but I do miss the black one.
That's all right. You're gonna get your chance at customizing a van again. I got the Pentastar portholes for the one I'm gonna buy.
I saw that. That was good.
Do you know how expensive those things are? Like, I'm surprised. I got both of the ones I have for less than $100. But if you go on eBay, those things are going for hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, I was trying to get a front spoiler for the camper van from Custom Vans. I guess somehow or another I got the guy on my Facebook page, Kurt Collis, and I talked to him about getting his full spoiler to see if it would hook up to my camper van, and it became to one of those things that too bad you don't live in Pennsylvania, near where I live. We could just test fit it.
Yeah.
That's where he's from. But he makes the double doors. I mean, the fiberglass doors. He makes a lot of van parts.
Wow.
He does even interiors, too. So he seemed like a nice guy. He's about my age, looks like. He's been at it for quite a while.
Well, I hope he's
So
got Dodge parts because I'm gonna get the flares and stuff and the front lip spoiler
yeah,
for mine. So
yeah, might be able to get a deal from him or trucks and vans or that other guy in West Virginia. What's his name that did the boogie van or whatever, the Chevy van that he got himself in trouble with.
yeah, gosh, I don't even know. I usually when I look for van stuff, I usually go to like vannin.com or customvanner.com, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But vanning, I didn't realize how big it still is. There's still quite a large following for vans. It's crazy.
yeah.
So, but
Well,
anyways, Pop,
yeah, yeah. Let me know how you're going to try to get that red one over.
yeah, I'll give you a hand with that. Just let me know when you want me to come over. But
Let me know your red van.
oh yeah. So this is the plan. There's something wrong with the transmission. So I'm gonna try to find a transmission before I go over there and get it, so that when I get it back here, I can just put a transmission in it and make sure it's good to go. I want to see if it runs while we're over there, but um, my friend who has it, Stacy, he had it towed. He towed it. He hauled it with an 18-foot trailer. So I'm actually thinking about, because I can't find anywhere locally that rents 18-foot trailers. So I'm actually thinking about seeing how much it's going to cost for me to buy one. I'm thinking about buying an 18-foot trailer, but we can talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I'll need some help with that. I've had a
So
couple.
maybe we can go halves on it or something.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll put a big Mopar Hunter or Talking Mopars logo on it. It'll be fun. But it'll be an adventure. But Dad, I just wanted to say thank you, because without you, I owe my Mopar enthusiasm to you, because and cars in general. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be into cars and stuff. And hopefully with the podcast, it changes my life and stuff. And so far it has. I've met a lot of really cool people with it. But so thanks for getting me into Mopars, Pops. I appreciate it.
Well, I got you in a bunch of different kind of cars. Mopars was the one I was surprised. Had I known you were going to go into Mopars more than some of the other ones, I don't know. Would I had, would I hung on to them more? You know what I mean?
It's all right. I've managed to get a green Dart, and now I'm going to get a van. So the Mopars that we lost from the past, I'll remake them. We're going to make them happen again. But
Yeah,
it's
we'll make them better.
oh,
That's the thing. We can always improve, and now you have a chance to do it.
well, I have a friend down in Louisiana who's going to help me with the van. I'll tell you more about that later. It's going to be really cool. But I appreciate you doing the podcast, because I know you're a little reluctant to do it in the first place, because you're on the podcast right now.
Oh, okay.
Thousands of people are listening to this right now, Dad.
No kidding. All right. Well,
I told them I was going to surprise call you.
Hey, you know what? I'm happy you got into something. Okay, that's cool.
Hey, you were a great interview. I knew you would be, and that's why I wanted you to come on the podcast. And the main reason I wanted you to come on the podcast, and I don't want to get too mushy here, but you realize that now your voice is immortalized in audio form. So now, Sage and her kids and their kids will always be able to hear us talking. So they'll be able, years from now when we're long gone, they'll be able to listen to us talk Mopars. How cool is that?
Right.
That's cool.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I just you just got me remembering about all the cars and the good times. Compared to what's going on today, I kind of miss the old times. A lot of fun then.
Oh gosh, these times suck. But I just wanted to say thanks, Pops, and thanks for. I know that I know that you weren't expecting to be on the podcast, and I didn't want you to get nervous or anything, because it's really a laid back show, and we just have a good time here. So, and I know my audience, and I know that they want to hear from you, and I knew it would be fun. So thank you for being a good sport.
Okay, Chris. I hope I did you some good.
You did, and I'm going to have you on the podcast again. So just know this: anytime I call you, you never know if you're going to be on the podcast.
I'm going to be aware of that now. Yes.
I'm just kidding, Dad. This is going to be a great episode. I think people will get a real kick out of it. But thank you very much for being on the show, and I'll talk to you later. Okay.
All right. You take care.
All right. You too. Well, there you have it, folks. The interview with my dad that I've been trying to get for the better part of a year. I finally got it. He was actually supposed to be the original Direct Connections episode, but he wouldn't do it. He was a little reluctant, but we finally got him on the show. It was a blast. I had a great time. I'm so happy that he decided to do it, even though it was not by choice. But you got to do what you got to do. You know, I had to get him on the show. Come on, he's my dad. So he's been on the show. Hopefully, we can have him back on the show at a future date. But for now, he's been on. That's fun. Hopefully, he'll start listening to the show. I know he doesn't listen to it and he won't admit it, but that's okay. We're gonna get him to start listening. All right. Um, yeah, he's a motorcycle guy too. He's got a Yamaha VMAX, those really cool hot rod bikes from back in the '80s, and his is newer than that, but they're pretty cool bikes too. I'm not really a motorcycle guy myself. He definitely is. He enjoys the bike, and that's cool. But he also enjoys his Mopars. So hopefully that won't be the last we hear from Mopar Hunter Sr. But now it's time for listener stories, so let's get into that. It's time once again for listener stories, and as it turns out, a few did get lost in the shuffle, so we're going to get to those. We're only a few behind, so all of you out there that still have stories yet to be shared, don't worry. I know of all of you. And like I said on the last episode, if there's any of you that still are doubting me, feel free to reach out. A couple of you did, and I appreciate that. We're going to get your story shared. No problem at all. I look forward to doing that. So let's get into this week's listener stories. The first one comes to us from Dave. And here is Dave's story. Hi, Chris. My name is Dave Bowering. I have to tell you how much I enjoy your podcast. I love hearing the stories of fellow Mopar owners. My Mopar story started in 1973. I grew up in the early 70s in the lower mainland of British Columbia, Canada. When I was 12 years old, my older brother came home with a 1969 Dart he bought from the local Dodge dealer. It was a B5 Blue Swinger 340 4-speed with dog dish hubcaps, big Mickey Thompson tires, air shocks, and a Hemi hood scoop. Needless to say, it became well known to the local police and was well known on the streets. After a year or two, the Dart was parked with an injured 340. Fast forward 5 years and the Dart is given to me when I am 17 years old. The Dart goes to auto shop in my high school where my shop teacher helps me get her running again. Well, as you can guess, the local police still remember the Dart. So, lots of speeding tickets later and I've lost my license for a few months. The Dart gets parked again. Years go by with Dad complaining about the Dart taking up space in Mom and Dad's driveway. So, we cut down Mom's cherry tree to park the Dart beside the house. That didn't go over well. The Dart needed a lot of work to make her roadworthy, the drum brakes were in need of replacement, K-member was badly cracked, etc. I decided to buy a 1969 GTO that is in better running condition for $1,000. I detonate the bottom end of that within a year, but I sell it for $1,000. I say screw it, I buy a brand new 1979 Toyota 4x4 for $7,800. The Dart comes with me when I move out of Mom and Dad's place. Fast forward 10 years, I get married and move to the interior of BC. Yep, Dart in tow, motor and tranny in a crate. I move on to 10 acres of land and put up an A-frame building for the Dart. Life goes on, 2 kids and lots of responsibility. The beloved Dart spends 14 lonely years in the A-frame. Fast forward to 2003, I move into town and now have a garage for the Dart. Finally start a restoration of the Dart. She has not been driven since 1978. Rebuild becomes a family affair. My son and daughter help me sand her down to bare metal, and off she goes to the blasters. The floor pan and trunk are in great shape. She needs a rear quarter panel and some work on the front fenders. Lots of part shopping on eBay, etc. She is still sporting the Mr. Gasket vertical gate shifter, so now she needs a new 4-speed hump, has bucket seats out of a Cortina or something. I locate a correct bench seat at an auto wrecker's, new interior installed from year 1 except the back seat. It is still the original light blue bench. With assistance from the wife and kids, we reinstalled the 340 with a rebuilt A833. The Dart is ready to roll in time for my son's high school graduation in 2007. She is my daily driver in the summer now. I take her to local car shows and to the drag strip when I get a chance. She has a best time of 1384 at 99 miles an hour. I retired this past year and the Dart is getting an upgrade. She is still running the X-Heads and the old Offenhauser intake. She is getting ported Eddies, a Victor Jr. intake, and a Crower solid lifter cam and 391 rear gears. Thanks for taking the time to read my Mopar story. Oh, and by the way, the current power bulge hood will be removed for the flat black Hemi hood she has always worn. Regards, Dave Bowering. Hey, Dave, thanks for sending in your story. Great story, man. And I hope I got your last name right. I can be a real bonehead when it comes to names. But great story on the Dart. I think it's great that it used to be your brother's and that you still have it today. And it's been kind of a family project. I think that's awesome. I also think it's great that it's your daily driver during the summer. That's cool. I mean, what a cool daily driver for the summertime. A 69 Dodge Dart 4-speed 340 car that runs 13s in the quarter mile and looks good doing it. That's awesome, man. What a cool car. I like it a lot. And what's not to like about a 69 Dodge Dart Swinger 340 4-speed car? Thanks, Dave, for sending in your story. All right, let's get into some voice messages here. Our first voice message comes to us from Jeremy Williams. Here is Jeremy's message.
Hey, Chris. My name is Jeremy Williams. I've been watching your show for the better part of 2020. Been really close to calling you in and giving you my story, but for some reason, one thing or another, I kind of fell to the wayside. So in any event, I've got a story that is definitely one for the books. And, taking it back down to 1969, my great-grandmother went to the dealership and ordered herself a 1969 Plymouth Barracuda coupe. She custom ordered it. She wanted the real fancy interior, the bucket seats. She wanted the light green, frost green, with the F8 green interior. But she didn't want the gas guzzling V8 or some of the other more expensive attributes like power steering. I never quite understood that one. In any event, she purchased the car brand new from the dealership, enjoyed it for a few years, and sign would have it, she passed on maybe 5 or 6 years after that. I left the car to my grandfather. It was pretty much the only thing he had of her, actually. And he enjoyed the car for many years. And when my father turned 16, the Barracuda was given to him. And he drove it for a while. I remember hearing stories of strapping boats onto it, and going fishing with the lake, and him and my uncle just having a good time in it. He even took my mother on their first date, I believe in 1986. Where she puked in the front seat, left a big old stain. Well, for some reason, which no one in my family will understand, my mother didn't like the color, and her comments led my father to sell the car. He sold the car in 1989, and it was devastating for my grandfather. They didn't speak for a while after that. That was the last piece of his mother that he had. And, of course, I was born shortly after that, and heard stories growing up. And grandma's car, great-grandma's 69 Plymouth Barracuda. I can never bring it up in front of my grandfather just because it would get awkward, quiet. And it was something that you should talk about in front of Grandpa. And taking it down to more modern time, in 2014, I had just gotten off of a ship, had some money in my pocket, and was looking for a car. I was regularly going to California and Washington and wanted some sort of transportation in Washington. And like all of us Mopar people, look on Craigslist, Facebook, see what we got. And I found 69 Plymouth Barracuda. It looked exactly like great grandma's. It was a notchback, that light green. So I contacted my father. Wasn't too far away. And I had 12 hours off. We went over to go take a look at it. It happened to be the same individual that my father sold the car to back in the late 80s, early 90s. He was 89. And so we talked for a while. And I guess he had the car up in Alaska for 10, 12 years. I brought the car back down, and it was sitting in a shed out behind his house. The funny thing is the car was only a few blocks away from my grandparents up in the Skagit County area in Washington State. So that was pretty similar. But, we struck a deal. He was really happy to give it back to the original family. I ended up picking it up for $5,000, running, driving, 96,000 miles on it with a trunk load of parts and a spare 8 3/4 axle. It's pretty nice. And so I've been able to have that since 2014, aside from the general fear of touching the car. It's only original once. I've been overseas quite a bit in the last few years, so I haven't really been able to even start. Bringing to where it's at today, health of the grandfather is not holding up as well as we'd all like. And my father and I have kind of set this goal where we're trying to have the car running and driving by August of 2021. We're going to submit the car into the Hot August Night Show in Reno under my grandfather's name. We're going to be flying my grandfather down to be able to show off the car and talk about the history of it. Now, it's a flat six, and I need a little more power than that. That's just not quite enough to get me going. Had it been a 340 or something larger, I would have probably done a completely stock restoration. But that's just not in my blood. So what I decided to do after years of building the car on paper and in my head is I'm actually going with a V10 Viper swap. So I'm going to be pushing the firewall back about 5 inches. I've got a 96 crate Viper motor with 0 miles on it. And I've got the Gerst front suspension going in. I've got a strange 60 for the rear. And of course, it wouldn't be a good combination without a T56. So with the Viper V10, I'm putting a T56 6-speed into it. Now, I won't have it completely restored by August, but it's going to be running and driving. It'll most likely have its original patina on it. And, if anyone wants to check out the car, it'll be at Hot August Night 2021. I can guarantee you that. Thanks for letting me share my story, and I look forward to the next episode you've got coming out. Thanks a lot, Chris. Bye.
Wow, Jeremy, thanks for sending in your story. That was a good one, man. I love all my listeners' stories here that are sent to me on this show, but some of them, they just tug on the heartstring a little bit for me. And stories like this, where cars are reunited with the original owners or families, are just awesome. I love hearing stories like that, man. But before I continue here, you've said you've been on ships and overseas and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're in the service. And if you are, thank you for your service. Your service is why we have the freedoms that we do. So thank you for your service. If you are a serviceman, I could be completely wrong. Who knows? You might be on a shipping container ship or something. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're in the service. So getting back to your story, that is so cool, man. Wow. What are the odds of that? I think it's great that you found the car. To get it back is just awesome. And now that you have it, you're going to do some really cool things with it, man. A Viper V10. Wow. That's crazy. I know of a guy in Washington State, Horsepower Northwest. His name's Aaron. He's putting a Viper V10 in a GTX. Anytime somebody swaps a Viper engine in an old Mopar, I've seen Cudas have it done. I just think they're so cool. And, I really like the idea of an A-body with a V10 in it. That's awesome, man. I can't wait to see this thing done. I wish I could make it out to Hot August Nights to see it, but hopefully you send us some pictures so we can take a look at it when it's all done. It sounds like it's going to be awesome. A Viper V10 with wearing its patina on the outside. That's cool, man. I'm 100% in. I can't wait to see it. What a great story. Thanks, Jeremy, for sharing it with us. Our next listener story comes to us from Nathan, and he's from North Carolina. Here is Nathan's story.
Hey, I just want to tell a story. My name's Nathan, and I'm from North Carolina. And to start a long story, kind of, when I was a freshman in high school, I rode the bus, and we went down the street, and every time I see this old car, and I was always in the cars, but I was never directly in the Mopars. And I know it sounds stupid and everything. You might make fun of me or something, but when I first saw this car, I wasn't close enough to read the big Dodge letters across the hood. I thought it was a Ford. When I said it out loud, and a kid there who's also interested in the car looked at me and goes, "Oh, that's a Dodge." Well, about a month goes by and I don't think about it anymore. And then my grandma talked to me, "Nathan, you need a car." Well, we looked at a couple other cars, normal cars. I know, but there was a Pontiac, 62 Pontiac Bonneville down the street, and I looked at that, and it was complete rock bucket and everything, just horrible, in the mud. Guy wanted $3,000 for it, and just, no. Went over to this car, and this car is rust-free, cranks right up. The man wants $6,500 for it with a set of, I think they were American Racing wheels that looked, I didn't like the way they looked on this car. And so he cut us a deal. He said he knocked it all the way down to $5,000 if we just put the stock wheels and tires back on it. And we said deal. I went half in with my grandmother and walked and paid it off and got the car home. And the day after I got it home, it snowed. And I sat up, you can ask, I sat out there and made laps around the house through the snow in this car that's driving it. Well, about my sophomore year, the 318 Poly that was in it started to show its age and lack of maintenance someone did to it. And it just finally just gave up the ghost and went running right, nothing. So I took it to this man named Dwight Elwood. And he's a big Mopar man, that's all he does. And he was telling me about this month. He built a 360 for a 70 dog. And but he said he'd sell it to us and put it in $5,000. Well, that 5,000 tons was more like 8, but because we put disc brakes up front, bottom rear end from 355 show grip, all that good stuff. And interesting about the white, I didn't know about it until after I started helping him up there. He's got a 62 Plymouth Sport Fury 413 Max Wedge call. But yeah, he's an old drag racer, and he's not as famous as his partner was. His partner was Roy Johnson, son of Alan Johnson. Father of Alan Johnson, excuse me. Well, the COVID-19 hit halfway through fixing my car, and and I was there every day at the shop helping, trying to get this car done. Finally get it done, get it home, drive it for about, it got done in May. What month is it? I parked it in late September and towed back apart, putting that rear end in it. And it's been a couple months. Well, it's been a month. And I just now started getting more money to finish it. I've painted it, fixed the brakes, redid the leaf springs, put shocks on it, and everything. And so now, as I'm sending this to you, I'm sitting in my shop looking at it, waiting for parts to get here, so they can be, new axle bearings and everything. And I was just looking for some entertainment to do out here, and I found your podcast, and I'm so glad I did, because I'm, like I said, I used to didn't know anything about Mopars, but now it's Mopar no call with me, and so some of the cars you were talking about, like 68 Chargers for about $100, just if I could have that, I think I'd do the same thing that man did and buy it right out. But yeah, I'm just glad to share my story with you, and I know it'd be a little bit before it goes on the podcast, but that's all right. I'll stay here and listen until it gets gets put on the podcast, and then I'll listen some more. Love the podcast. Keep up the good work. I forgot to tell you what kind of car it was. It's 1965 Dodge Coronet 440. Not original, 440 trim package. And the funny thing is about it, is a lot of kids my age say it ain't worth nothing and everything. A lot of grown men say that too. It's a four-door. It's a four-door sedan. But as my Instagram was saying and everything, I tried to trying to make the fastest four-door sedan, old four-door sedan around. I can't run with the new Hellcat Chargers and everything, but I could show scale some Honda Civics and some boys that talks about it Mustangs that ain't paying attention like I've done before. And so yeah, I just figured I'd actually tell you what kind of car it is, and sorry if it's gonna be hard to splice together or something, but hopefully I can see my story on the podcast, and keep up the good work, and bye.
Hey, Nathan, thanks for sending in your story, man. Yeah, it's funny. Before I got to your last message, I was like, oh man, what kind of car is it? So in my head, I was trying to figure out, I was like, okay, it's got a 318 Poly in it, which is the polyspherical 318. And I'm thinking, okay, so it's got to be, I was guessing, and lo and behold, your last message let us know what kind of car it was. So that was great. Thanks, Nathan. Cool story, man. Hey, I don't care how many doors a Mopar has. It's still cool in my book, buddy. And I'm all for building a sedan. I think more four doors should be purchased and hot rodded. Maybe that's just me, but they also make great project cars. They're not nearly as expensive as, Chargers or Cudas or Challengers or anything like that. And not everybody's lucky like Johnny Mopar and can get a Charger for $100 or even $1,000. I mean, even $1,000 for a Charger in nearly any condition is a screaming deal in today's market, man. So I'm all for it. I actually am really curious to see what ends up happening with your Coronet. So keep me updated on your project, buddy. Thanks for sending in your story. I just love getting stories from listeners who tell me that they learned something on my podcast, because I'm no Mopar expert. I'll be the first to admit that. So I like to think of it as a learning experience for everybody. Even if you're a Mopar, guru, maybe at some point along the duration of this podcast, for however many years it goes, maybe you'll learn something. I just love hearing stories about people that, learn something from the show, even if it's something small. I think that's great. I love hearing that people listen to the podcast while they're out in their shops or in their garage or out in their yard, in their carport working on their Mopars, and they're listening to me talk about Mopars. That's awesome to me. I love it. And I really love it when you guys call and share your stories. And even when you email your stories, I'm just horrible at reading them. That's the only reason why I prefer you guys calling in. But thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I can tell that you're a Mopar enthusiast and that everybody that, you know, all the listener stories that I get, I can hear the enthusiasm for Mopars in your guys' voice. Much like, I mean, I've had people tell me, oh, we can really hear how much you love Mopars. Well, I can hear the same thing out of you guys. And it makes doing this podcast so rewarding because I know that I'm not the only lunatic out there that's obsessed with Mopars. So that's cool, man. Appreciate you sending in the story, Nathan. Keep me updated on your project. Thanks for sending in your story. Our next listener story comes to us from a familiar to the show. And the reason why I call this gentleman a familiar is because he has the Talking Mopars record for most voicemails left. And that is our friend Tad. Tad is back. Let's hear what Tad has to say this time around.
All right, Chris. I said in an email that I wouldn't be leaving any voicemails anytime soon, and I got less than 24 hours in. It's Tad. Just listened to the podcast again, and I just wanted to thank you for sharing my stories. I was embarrassed first, but no, I was like, you know what? I'm going to own this. This is my life. This is all the stuff that I've done and cars I've had, and honestly, after listening to it again, I realized how much I had forgotten until I started listening to your podcast and other people's stories and realizing how involved in cars and working on cars and all that I have been. So anyway, I want to thank you for that. As I was listening, I really started out in air-cooled Volkswagens back when I was like 21, 22. I got a 66 bus, but it reminded me of a Volkswagen story. When I was like 24, I worked at a Volkswagen shop. I restored cars, did regular maintenance and stuff. But I remember closing up one day, and the phone rings, and I answer it, and this guy's like, "Hey, do you guys buy old cars or whatever?" And I'm like, what do you got?" He's like, "Oh, I have this 64 Volkswagen bus that I have to get rid of. I'm moving. It has to be gone." And I was like, "Well, is it in good condition, or what kind of condition is it in?" And he's like, "Well, it hasn't been driven for about 2 weeks, but other than that, it's in pretty good shape." So closed the shop up, and our shop truck was a 67 single cab. So I hopped in that thing and threw the tow bar in the back, drove, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to this guy's house. And I mean, there sits a 64 Combi, looked like it had been driven yesterday. But I get there, open up the engine compartment, and the engine was pretty dusty, and there's no way it had been driven. Looking at the engine in the last 2 weeks. So anyway, I stand up. The guy's like, "I'll take $100. I have to move tomorrow." So I hooked that thing up and towed it home. Ended up keeping it for a few months, and then I sold it. But just knowing now what those Volkswagens are going for, I can say that I got a Mopar for $100. I just, again, remembering some of those old times and memories that I have, I got a Volkswagen bus for $100 as well. Anyway, Chris, again, I appreciate your podcast. It's awesome listening to it. I still have to get used to hearing my voice. But yeah, I even listening to my own voice telling my stories, it brings back a lot of memories and laughs and giggles and yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much, Chris. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Hey, Tad. Welcome back, buddy. I'm glad that, hearing the podcast brings back memories and, of good times and laughs and things like that. That really just it makes me happy to hear things like that, man. It really does. And, it's funny you say getting used to listening to your own voice. How do you think I feel? You know what I mean? I hate listening to my own voice. It sucks. But, you know, it is it comes with the territory, I guess. But I do appreciate you as a listener. You're talking about Volkswagens, and this is a Mopar podcast, Tad. But I'm going to let it slide this time because I have something to admit to the listeners. I too, at one time, had an air-cooled Volkswagen. For a long time, I just thought they were cool. They're cheap, or they were cheap, and my dad had a Volkswagen a long, long time ago, and I always thought it was fun. And around here in the Pacific Northwest, there is a huge following for Volkswagens. And you talked about the combi and those things. You're absolutely right. $100 for a combi, God, you know, you can't touch a bumper for a combi for $100. But I had a 58 Volkswagen Bug. It was two-toned. It had the roof rack on it, the low back seats, and I bought it for $600. But that's a whole other story that I don't want to get into on a Mopar podcast, so I won't. But I will say this: if it wasn't for that Volkswagen Bug, I would have never had my Dart, because it is connected to the Dart. Because I sold the Volkswagen to buy my Jeep Cherokee, and I traded my Jeep Cherokee for another mode of transportation that we won't get into. It was actually a little scooter, and yeah, we won't get into that. But I sold the scooter for $1,500, and that put the cash in my pocket to get my Dart. So thanks to that Volkswagen, I got my Dart. So that's my Volkswagen story. But I understand where you're coming from, man. Sometimes you just find those cars that you can get for so cheap, and then later on down the road, you're thinking to yourself, man, how did I get that thing for so cheap? And, how much is it worth now? You know what I mean? So those stories are always fun to hear. And I don't care what kind of car you're talking about when you talk about getting it for cheap and how much they're worth now, because everybody's got a story about like that. But thanks, man. I really appreciate it. You still have the record, and you just upped it by 13. But thanks, Tad. I'm glad you like the show. I'm glad you enjoy listening to it. And that goes for everybody. Thank you all for listening to the show. Thank you all for submitting your stories. I have one more listener story coming up, and it's going to have to wait till next week because we are about to turn into a pumpkin. We've gone over an hour and a half, and I need a story to tell on the next episode. So, Peter with the Green Super Bee, your story's up next on episode 60. And for anybody else out there whose story I haven't told yet, remember, reach out to me. Let me know, hey, you missed my story, Chris. When are you going to share it? And I will get back to you as soon as I can, and we'll get that story shared right here on Talking Mopars. That was listener stories. If you want to hear your story on the show, you can do so by emailing me or leaving me a voicemail that I will play on the show. My email is chris@talkingmopars.com, and the number to call for voicemails is 209-28-MOPAR. That was listener stories. What a fun episode of Talking Mopars. I'm so happy to get my dad on the show. I've been trying for a long time to do that. He was supposed to be my first guest ever because I wanted somebody on the podcast who I was comfortable speaking with, because I've never formally interviewed anybody. This is my first podcast. Talking Mopars. Before this, I never podcasted. I never interviewed anybody in this type of way. So it was all new to me, and he didn't want to do the show, for whatever reason. I'll try to figure that out next time I talk to him, figure out why he didn't want to come on the show. But he's been on it now, and I don't regret anything. I'm glad I got him on there, even if we had to con him into coming on the show. I think it's great, and I hope to have him on the show in the future. So there you have it, my friends. Another episode of Talking Mopars is in the books. For more information about this podcast or to listen and subscribe to the show, please visit talkingmopars.com. And don't forget that you can send me your stories, your questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, and everything else on your Mopar addicted mind to chris@talkingmopars.com, or leave me a voice message on my voicemail box at 209-28-MOPAR to hear yourself on the show. Special thanks to my friends over at hemipages.com. HemiPages is a directory source for the Gen 3 Hemi and Mopar aftermarket, including all of its related connections and content. They are also the brains behind the Build Mopar Community Project car, the 1968 Dodge Dart Superstock tribute car powered by a Gen 3 426 cubic inch supercharged Hemi called the Dart Pack. For more info on the Dart Pack and how you can participate in the project, And to check out the directory, visit hemipages.com. It's definitely a place that I frequently visit and have bookmarked on my favorites list, and you should too. Thank you also to my buddies over at DIYhemi.com. They are another company run by Mopar enthusiasts that are also bookmarked on my favorites list. If you're like me, you love classic Mopars and modern Mopars too. Now you can have the best of both worlds by combining the styling of the past with the power and technology of the future by swapping in a modern Gen 3 Hemi into your classic Mopar. So, if a modern Hemi swap is something on your to-do list for your project car, you gotta visit DIYhemi.com to find out how you can make that happen. DIY Hemi can help you build the ultimate fusion of classic and modern muscle without breaking the bank. One last thing before we go, if you'd like to help support Talking Mopars, jump on over to TalkingMopars.com and check out the Talking Mopars merch shop. There you will find all the current Talking Mopars merch like t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, and more, with more on the way, so stay tuned for that. And when you order stuff from the merch shop, you're not only getting cool stuff, but in doing so, you're helping me to keep the wheels turning and the engine running on this podcast each and every week. So thank you for that. That's it, my friends. Until we talk again, I am your host, Chris Albrecht, and that was Talking Mopars.
Thank you for listening to Talking Mopars, your direct connection to all things Mopar. Until next time, remember, no Mopar left behind.